Well, hi there, and welcome to this discussion on tourism in the Canberra region and the Australian Capital Territory. I'm Joe Prevedello, and I'm joined for this discussion by the owner-operator of Canberra Guided Tours, Canberra's leading small group touring business, Neil Hermes. Neil, g'day.
Hi, Joe. How you going?
Excellent, thanks. So, in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about when to visit Canberra, what time of the year. Now, one of the things that strikes me about the Canberra region is that there's such a diversity in the seasons. There's really four distinct seasons.
Absolutely,
in the Canberra region, and there's really benefits to coming at any time of the year, isn't there?
Well, that's what I would have said. If you said when's the best time to come, I'd have said come at any time, of course. But yes, there are different characteristics of Canberra in different seasons, and that's one of the unique things about Canberra is that most of Australia has, two seasons perhaps, or three, a limited, less number of seasons. Whereas in Canberra, we have very distinct seasons. And it's one of the joys of living in Canberra that, you might find it a bit cold in the winter and then a bit hot in the summer, but you do get this change. And it's the changing season that sort of gives a context for life in Canberra.
That's exactly right. I mean, when you do live here, it's probably a bit difficult to notice too much when you visit for a short period. But when you live here, you really do notice and appreciate that change, like at the start of autumn, coming out of summer, where the air starts to get a little crisper, and the deciduous trees, the colours start to appear. It's just magic, isn't it?
And I think that there are two particular times of the year that switch between summer and autumn, and the switch between winter and spring, where for a week or two you can just tell in the air that things are moving and changing, and that's the precursor to then the experience of that season.
So let's start with autumn then.
Yep. Good.
If international visitors or Australians from, say, Sydney or Melbourne came to Canberra in autumn, in March, April or May, what should they expect at that time of the year from the weather and things to do?
Okay, so autumn is a very pleasant time in terms of the weather. So it's not too cold, and so it's just a very comfortable time in terms of getting about. The real feature of Canberra, though, in the autumn is the trees that we have had planted across the city. Millions of trees were planted since the 1920s. And in the early days, many of those trees were European trees or North American trees, Himalayan trees that normally would have the change of colour. And in autumn, the bulk of the city is this extraordinary cavalcade of colours. There's Manchurian pears, there's elms, there's maples, there's oaks, and all the different colours. And then certain streets have certain times, for about a month or so, where they're just spectacular. I love it when the Manchurian pears, for example, are just going that rich red that they do just before they drop all their leaves. It's a magic time of the year during autumn. Especially if you're not used to that changing season and that deciduous effect.
So there's obviously all of that spectacular colour, and the weather is relatively temperate. It's very comfortable.
Yep.
You're talking about temperatures in, maybe up to the mid-20s.
Yes, that's right.
Overnight it could cool down to about 10 degrees
Celsius.
Yeah,
you might get 5 or 10, but it's not going to be
quite comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable time of the year, autumn. Yes.
And culturally, then, let's talk about autumn. Some of the things that come to mind are, politically, if you're really into Australian politics, well, that's the time of the year normally that the federal budget's held.
Yeah, that's right.
If people are into rugby, well, that's when the Super Rugby season, when the Brumbies play.
That's right.
It's typically in autumn.
That's right. And if you're an AFL supporter, there's likely to be an AFL game or two during the autumn. The first games will be in Canberra in the early part of autumn, so in April or thereabouts. So, and then there's a whole range of other little festivals that go on as well. So there's lots to do. There's lots of activity against a beautiful backdrop of the city in its full colours.
Yeah. Let's move on to winter then.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look, winter's in Canberra. It's almost like a badge of honour thing, I think, for people who live in Canberra, that they thrive in the winter. They love it. They love the cold. They dress for it.
Yeah.
Some people might find it a little bit harsh, but there's almost an intrigue, I think, to the winter season.
Yeah,
having it here,
and look,
you
to
know.
be absolutely fair, people do in Canberra tend to dress up as though they're going to the South Pole a bit in the winter. But really, seriously, it's not. I mean, sure, it can get down to say -5 overnight or whatever, and we will get frosts, and very rarely, well, at least on the hills around Canberra, snow. But it's really not cold in the northern hemisphere sense.
No.
That we don't have snow sitting around on the ground a foot deep or a metre deep. So yes, it's cold, but it's a dry cold. It's easy to rug up for the weather. The winter months are very brisk. The air is very clear. Again, it's a time of a lot of political activity in the city. One of the advantages of Canberra too is that we're very close to the snow. We have a snowfield. The major snowfields are quite, within a couple of hours of the city, and we also have the local snowfields where children go and just have a bit of fun in the snow at the Corrin facility. So it's a good time of the year for embracing outdoor activities and a really brisk time of the year. But certainly with a layer or two of clothing. A walk outside around the lake is wonderful in the winter months.
Yeah, it's a really good point you make about the snowfields. I mean, Australia's main snowfields for serious snow sports like skiing and boarding and things like that are a 2-hour drive from Canberra. Right. So,
yes.
You could come from elsewhere in Australia or around the world, and if you wanted to base yourself in Canberra for a little while, you could easily spend a couple of days down at the snow, hire your gear, take in some snow sport, then come back and experience a bit more of the city.
Sure, and some of our Asian visitors who come in from Southeast Asia, from the hot parts of Southeast Asia, who aren't used to snow and not sure what snow is going to be all about, they can have some time in Canberra. We can just go to the snow for the day, so people can just see what the snow is like, get wet, get cold, see what it's like, take the children out, let them have that experience, and be back in Canberra the same day. So. It has all of those opportunities for people in the winter months.
I mean, before we move on to spring, the other thing about winter, and you sort of touched on it a bit before, was you get really clear. If you get a really clear sort of sunny day in winter, it'd be quite amazing.
Those crisp days, they're really sharp, crisp days, and it's lovely.
Spending a bit of time outside in the sun.
Yeah.
Coolish air, crisp air, so it keeps you on your toes.
But very comfortable. but very comfortable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we then go into spring, when we have all the festivals. We, of course, have a famous festival, which is Floriade, which is the 6-week flower festival during the latter part of September and through to October. 1 million bulbs or thereabouts planted. There's not many places in Australia that bulbs can be grown easily. You need that cold soil through the winter, and most of Australia, the climate's too warm to grow bulbs very well. So we have the opportunity in Canberra to grow beautiful bulbs, and so there's a festival during September, October, but lots of other floral.
Well, Canberra's a garden city.
Lots of other floral.
And garden cities, springtime.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and again, the deciduous trees, the autumn, the northern hemisphere trees come into their spring growth. And again, I mentioned the Manchurian pears. They have this brilliant white, absolutely amazing blossom for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then they have the bud burst, and that's in spring. So all of those effects are in spring. So springtime is a really fabulous time to see that, as well as I said, the various festivals that then happen around Floriade, etc.
Yeah, I've always found that in the springtime, the vibe is very good in Canberra.
Yes.
People are always happy in the springtime.
Yeah. Daylight saving has started.
Yeah.
The days are getting longer, and people are feeling that, they want to do more outdoors, have late afternoon barbecues, that sort of thing. It's a great time of the year.
And then finally, you roll into the warmer months around the summertime. Again, really quite a pleasant time to visit.
Yeah, Canberra has a very dry heat in the summer. We don't have any humidity. So what I find is if I go to Sydney or Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane, I feel the humidity now. Whereas if I'm in Canberra in the summer, it's very dry heat. So it might be warm, it might be in the 30s, but it's a dry heat and it's very comfortable. There's an advantage from a tourist point of view coming to Canberra in the summer because Parliament doesn't sit during the summer months. Accommodation houses tend to be more easily accessible, so you can get a bigger range of accommodation. And many Canberrans, of course, go away for the longer break over Christmas, say to the coast or wherever. So there's more opportunities. There's less people, at various things during the summer months. So it's a good time of the year to pick to visit Canberra from that point of view.
Another good point you raise about Parliament. I mean, that is something that people who are looking at coming to Canberra should look at throughout the year. They should look at the parliamentary sitting calendar because it does affect the availability rates in hotels.
It does, yes. I mean, if you want to see Parliament sitting, you have to come when there's Parliament sitting, obviously. There's 14 weeks of the year or thereabouts.
You'll get a room.
And you'll get something.
Right.
But the other lovely thing, of course, is mentioning Parliament. If you're at Parliament, you get to see the trees that are around Parliament, which are the trees they use for it's the budget tree, is the various trees have the colour of the leaves, which are then the backdrop to some of the big stories of the time. So the season and the trees also interlink with the political story.
So Canberra really is a city of 4 seasons and more. So if you're looking to visit, pick the time of year that suits you and you'll have a great time. Thanks for joining us, Neil.
Thank you, Joe.